As both India and China are currently engaged in 30-month-long standoff in eastern Ladakh, an interesting report has come from Pentagon that China has warned US officials not to interfere in its relationship with India. The report said that throughout its standoff with India along the line of actual control, Chinese officials sought to downplay the severity of crisis, emphasizing Beijing's intent to preserve border stability and prevent the standoff from harming other areas of its bilateral relationship with India. The report further said that China sought to prevent border tensions with India as these tensions could harm bilateral cooperation in other areas. The Chinese government wants to establish stability along the LAC as any border standoff with India will bring India and the US close, a scenario that China seeks to avoid under any circumstances. Commenting on the reasons behind the border standoff along LAC, the report said that China blamed Indian infrastructure construction on its perceived territory as the cause for the impasse, whereas India accused China of launching an aggressive incursion into its territory as the reason behind it. The report turned to the Galwan clashes between Indian and Chinese troops in June 2020 as one of the deadliest clashes in 46 years between both Asian giants. So, what prompted China to say this? The answer lies in the very question itself: what lies behind China's infrastructural development along LAC? India-China relations have seen many lows and have never really flourished into an amicable friendship. The primary reason is the border dispute between both countries. India and China share a 3,488-kilometer long boundary granted to us by, again, the ever-divisive Britishers. The Tripartite Conference of 1913 delimited the boundaries of India, Tibet, and China. But who was China to stay within the marked areas? The Chinese occupation of Aksai Chin in 1957 allowed the 1962 Indo-Sino War birthed a new military demarcation which came to be known as Line of Actual Control, the LAC. Local border skirmishes have continued since then on both in small and large scales, including the infamous Galwan Valley clash, which resulted in the loss of 20 Indian Army soldiers. But at the altitude and sub-zero temperatures and minimal vegetation and hardly any resources for natural survival, why is this piece of land so valuable, and why are both countries working so hard to create infrastructure at the location? The primary reason is the changing face of wars in the 21st century. Wars, conflicts, and clashes in today's world are very different from what they used to be in the 1900s. In today's hybrid war module, a majority of casualties are civilians caused by violent conflicts and their indirect effects like terrorism, disease, and famine. The line between civilians and combatants is also blurring. From a strategic point of view, this growing inclusion of civilians in armed conflicts can be termed direct participation in hostilities. Apart from physical presence in war areas, these people have also become an essential tool of modern-day war fighting as human emotions and empathy wrapped together to achieve strategic goals of a nation is a bestseller in the world platform. In such conflicts, the relationship between the civilian population and combatants is usually a highly complex and dynamic one. Because armed elites can manipulate the population for their own purposes, the population can also influence pattern of violence. People's Republic of China (PRC) had analyzed this blurring relation well in advance and started acting upon it. This is also advocated in the Chinese dream. The dream of a peaceful and happy life in China started 2,500 years ago when the term Zhaokang, which translates into a moderately prosperous society, first appeared in the ancient Chinese classic Shijing, the Book of Poetry. Being a communist country and following Maoist ideology, drawing its power from the masses, the story of improved well-being of the Chinese people will always be a central theme of its policies. But now there is also a markedly growing emphasis on power, on the dream of a strong defense, and on safeguarding Chinese interests. This makes it interesting how the Chinese Communist Party (CCP) will club these two aims within a single mission. Along with this, rural affairs have remained a top priority for China for 18 consecutive years, and same was also highlighted in the number 1 central document for 2021, which stressed the importance of efforts to comprehensively push towards rural vitalization and accelerate the modernization of agriculture and rural areas. What better area to work on this than border towns where your building of strategic military areas can go undetected as modernization of rural areas. The document aims that by the year 2050, rural areas should have robust agriculture, beautiful landscapes, and prosperous farmers, not to mention roads and access to military vehicles and creation of a fast logistic chain. Helipads and air support bases for an amalgamated power in case of war, and filling such sensitive areas with their own sympathetic population to harbor world sympathy in times of aggression from across the border is also a part of it. Now, if you read the document, the 4 major highlights of their aim cannot go undetected by the sane eyes, which includes number 1, the country will improve its supply of grain and other important agricultural products, focusing on the seed industry and arable land. Number 2, to improve rural industries such as the agricultural product processing industry to create more jobs in rural regions. Number 3, water supply. The power grid and transportation infrastructure will be upgraded, and rural public education, hospitals, and cultural services will be enhanced. Number 4, boosting rural governance. To test this model of creating a fantasy rural China, the propaganda wing of CCP chose rural Mianyang in Sichuan province as its pilot project. For this, the most famous vlogger in China, Li Ziki, who since 2017 became a girl of political poster girl for the rewards of countryside entrepreneurialism, coinciding with a government shift toward a policy of rural revitalization. The China National Highway G219, the Lhasa-Ningchi Railway and Medoc-Zhou Road, along with developments of airfields and airports, are some major developments on the Chinese side of the past few years. According to IMINT experts, the Chinese infrastructures across the border is increasing by the day and by the night. With the plain terrain on their side, the Chinese are swift to expand all their building infrastructure, networking infrastructure, and surveillance structures, and strategically mass there under the grab of assisting the rural areas of the Indian border. With the rolling of 5G infrastructure in the border areas, China is just adding one nail after the other to India's border worries. India might have been slow to pick on this aspect, but the hierarchy is not leaving any stone unturned to work its way towards strengthening the border. Earlier this year, the government unfurled the Vibrant Village program in the Union Budget 2022 to 2023 to develop northern border villages. This program is in addition to the China Border Roads Project, ICBR's project, what is in pipeline in 73 strategic roads, 125 bridges, and 9 strategic rail lines along the LAC. As per the official press release, the program will be implemented in 117 border districts in 16 states and 2 union territories. These include states like Uttarakhand, Himachal Pradesh, and Arunachal Pradesh. It is also aimed at increasing the construction of infrastructure, housing, tourist centers, road connectivity, and support their livelihood generation. On 22nd November 2022, Chief Minister of Arunachal Pradesh, Pema Khandu, said that highway building from west to east is in pipeline. The state is recipient of Rs 44,000 crores for road projects. The Vibrant Border Village scheme is also aiming to train local youth under NCC. A few villages being upgraded under the scheme are Ramnagar in Pilibhit, Uttarakhand, and Gurez, Jammu and Kashmir. Apart from these, the construction of habitat and storage shelters, including those by 3D printers and self-supportive, in the mountainous weather is also adding to India's border preparedness along with supporting the rural lifestyle. Changing times require changing tactics to handle the country, its citizens, its counterparts, and its critics. With the world's attention on China, both for its physical expansionist efforts and the economic quest, it is everyday devising a new methodology for making its stand in the world geopolitics by might and might. But even when a person works without making a noise, the neighbor always knows.